Hello and welcome to one of 3 Road to Kigali conversations brought to you by the World Economic Forum in partnership with CNBC Africa and Wole Famrewa. On the 11th to the 13th of March, the World Economic Forum for Africa 2016 will be holding in the Rwandan capital, and this year's forum will be themed Connecting Africa's Resources through Digital Transformation. As usual, the forum will bring together people from the public and private sector, regional and global leaders, and of course people from civil society as well. And this year they will be deliberating, as usual, on how to move the African continent forward in economic terms. And my guest today needs little introduction if in West Africa, and indeed across Africa. He is the chairman of Hears Holdings, Transcorp Group of Companies, United Bank for Africa, and of course the founder of the Tony Elumelu Foundation. And indeed, he's also the co-chair for this year's forum. My guest today is Tony Elumelu. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And of course, he will be discussing with us his thoughts about this year's forum and what we can expect. So Tony, thank you so much for joining us today. The forum has been going on for a while. And preparing for this interview, I was just thinking about some of the themes and how they've changed across Africa. In 2000, we had that big headline of a hopeless continent. By 2011, we're now talking about Africa rising, and that conversation continues to today. But your thoughts about the value of the World Economic Forum on Africa in terms of galvanizing the growth of the continent?
I personally have been associated with the World Economic Forum for over a decade, over 10 years. And I think I even hosted the first private sector hosting event in Nigeria back as 2005 or 2006. I did this because I see significant value in what World Economic Forum brings to the continent, to humanity, and to private sector in particular. It presents a whole lot of opportunities for people. Last year, the Transcorp Hilton Hotel Abuja hosted the World Economic Forum. So for me, it was beyond being a host as the group chair of the Transcorp Hotel. It was gratifying and encouraging to see them in Nigeria, especially at a time like that. So what happens is when the World Economic Forum moves, the global private sector moves along with World Economic Forum. So coming to Nigeria at the time they came was quite signaling. I know what is important to us on the continent at a point like this is job creation for our people. And we have seen that the government, public sector does not create jobs. We need the private sector to do so. And the private sector can be private sector in Africa and private sector from the rest of the world. So World Economic Forum helps again to galvanize and bring all of these people together. And coming to Africa, coming to Nigeria, going to Kigali, being in Cape Town signals to the world. And they begin to see a new side of Africa, a new side of Nigeria, a new side of Cape Town, a new side of Kigali. And then they begin to appreciate the need to invest in a place like this.
Right. And you in particular, I know that your company has become an African investor. I can take the example of the FX Commodities Exchange, which has operations in West Africa and East Africa. And of course, UBA is all over the continent. What is the value, if you can speak more specifically to your group of businesses, of the World Economic Forum?
No, for me, as a Pan-African, chairman of a Pan-African investment company, and also the founder of the Tony Elumelu Foundation, I see it from 2 perspectives. First is the business perspective. For the S audience, we appreciate the opportunity and the platform to negotiate, to dialogue, to explore opportunities with people from the rest of the world, especially Africa. So when I go to Kigali, we have a commodity trading exchange in Kigali. Not only will I be touching base with my people there, I will be exploring the business opportunities in Kigali. I will be meeting private sector leaders from across Africa who to see how we can advance further our private sector engagement, which is Africa capitalist driven in orientation. And so that is a major opportunity. Otherwise, you can spend the whole year traveling from one part of Africa to the other. But being in the same place, discussing with people who are like kind of verified, kind of serious private sector players is very important. On the philanthropy side, again, what is important to me, my people I work with and my associates, we need to see how we can empower the next generation of African leaders, the African youth. And so we see platforms like that as one that presents opportunity for us to continue the conversation. So for instance, we're going to launch a Agric report, which we did, as you know, the 200 million entrepreneurship program that is set up to support, empower 1,000 Africans every year for 10 years with a sum of $100 million US. We have a lot of Agric entrepreneurs, and we decided to do a research and find out what is affecting stifling or affecting the business, and find out how the private sector and the public sector can support what they do so that they can realize their full potential. We believe that agriculture is key in driving employment across the continent. So WEF has become a very useful platform for engagement, in advancement of private sector business as well as humanity, to assist mankind. And to me, this speaks to Afro-capitalism, which is all about doing business, investing in a manner that helps to create both economic prosperity and social wealth. And I see WEF as a platform for this.
Right, and it's great to hear about what you're doing in the foundation. Okay, but let's just take a step back and reflect on how far Africa has come as a continent. Earlier I mentioned how the headlines have changed from a hopeless continent to Africa rising, but your perspective, especially over the 10 years that you've been involved with the World Economic Forum, what for you have been the big changes, the positive changes you've seen in terms of investment activity, philanthropy, and so forth?
So clearly, I have had interaction with private sector leaders from across the globe, from Asia, from Middle East, from America, and Europe, who, as a result of our engagement interaction, have subsequently come to Nigeria, other parts of Africa, to continue the exploration of business opportunities, which we need. The truth is, we do have serious unemployment challenge in Africa. And our demographic dividend can actually become a demographic doom if we don't deal with it very well. If we don't deal with the issue of the fact that we have many young people entering the labor market, and we don't have commensurate employment to engage them, and the implications that has for even crime, for security issues, extremism, etc. We all know that. So I have come to realize that, and other people do too, that the private sector must play a key role in all of this. And WEF brings global private sector together. It brings the African private sector, the global private sector brings all of us together, and we engage. And I would say that I don't waste my time on things that I don't consider important. And things that are important to me, things that drive business as well as support humanity. And I wouldn't be going to Davos for many years now, and also attending the World Economic Forum in Africa, if I didn't see value in it. So I see not just personal value, but I also see value for the continent from a gathering such as this.
Right. But moving back to that conversation around how the continent has changed, would you say it's more difficult over the last 10 years or easier to do business? We know certainly at the moment it's a tough time given the impact of the commodity cycle. But beyond that, have you seen significant institutional reforms? Have you seen major changes that, in your view, have made it easier to do business on the continent?
I would say that African governments are improving, and it's encouraging. The macroeconomic environment is becoming more predictable, quite stable over time. We've had our economic boom, although driven by commodity boom. But it doesn't matter if it's commodity or not, but key thing is how we utilize the resources, the revenue that comes from it, and also how we diversify our economy. I would say that there's room for improvement. We've seen countries like Rwanda that have done very well in the area of competitiveness index. the World Economic Forum Competitiveness Index, as well as the World Bank Ease of Doing Business Index. And that is why in Nigeria, I galvanize the private sector and also the public sector for us to establish the Competitiveness Council of Nigeria, Nigerian National Competitiveness Council, to help improve our competitiveness. Because if we realize that the private sector has a key role to play in creating employment, then government and all of us must work together to create an enabling environment that enables the private sector to excel, and also as well as enable us to attract private capital from the rest of the world into Nigeria to help us grow our economy. So I would say in Nigeria, there's improvement. Across Africa, I've seen improvement. Ghana is done very well. You know, Senegal, wonderful. You know, Cote d'Ivoire, very serious-minded. You know, the Rwanda, they're doing very well. Ethiopia, fantastic. So indeed, you have pockets. You are not even pockets. You can see improvement across the continent. But we need to do more. We need to do more. We need to realize there are political leaders, and also the president, all of us, need to realize that if we don't fix unemployment issues on the continent, it will consume all of us. And the only way to fix the unemployment challenge in the continent, or one of the key ways to fix it, is to create the right environment that will enable this private sector to lead the way in creating employment. So we should ask ourselves, how competitive is our environment? How conducive is it for private sector investment? How supportive is it for private sector? This is the way to go. And this is, in my viewpoint, what all serious-minded Africans and leaders should be thinking about. Yeah. Job creation leads to poverty alleviation, leads to extermination, reduction of crime, you know, extremism, and everything. We need to give economic hope to our younger generation. It is a lack of hope that leads to extremism. We need to understand this. The way to it, we need to create employment, and that employment cannot be created if we don't create a conducive environment for private sector to do well.
Right, very well said. And we'll, of course, continue this conversation with Tony Elumelu. We'll continue the road to Kigali right here on CNBC Africa. Welcome back to this conversation with Tony Elumelu on the road to Kigali. Thank you so much for staying with us. You've obviously spoken very passionately about unemployment on the continent, and your foundation clearly is trying to address that. I really want to hear more from you in terms of what Africa needs to do. Clearly, you've made the point that the private sector has to lead the way, but in practical terms, how do governments, how does civil society get behind the private sector to make this change?
I'd like to say that there are three sectors that have a key role to play in this, amongst other sectors. But first is government, two is the private sector, and three is development partners. You know, let's start with government. First, we must realize, as I said before, that unemployment is a major challenge on the continent. And for us to deal with the issue of unemployment, the private sector has a key role to play. For the private sector to thrive and do well, the enabling environment must be there for private sector to do well. What is good for private sector in any economy or continent is good for the masses. That's the truth. Because they will employ people, they will create employment. And if you apply the philosophy or concept of Afro-capitalism here, if a private sector business invests in power sector, they make money. We, Transcorp Power, one of our subsidiaries, Transcorp Power, has a significant investment in the power sector in Nigeria. I intend it to produce over 2,500 megawatts, which should be at like 25% of the president, minimum 25% of the president's target for his administration, with 10,000 megawatts. If the right environment is created, we would achieve it. As we achieve this, we make profit, and our shareholders, everyone is happy. But as we make profit, we're helping to improve access to electricity in Nigeria. We're helping people who need electricity to drive their entrepreneurial aspirations. We're helping hospitals to become more supportive of human lives and saving of lives. We're helping students to go to school and do homework at night. We're helping entrepreneurs themselves establish businesses to reduce their cost of doing business. And as they reduce their cost of doing business, improve the competitiveness of the country. And as improve the competitiveness of the country, we can export. Entrepreneurs can export to the rest of the world and earn foreign exchange. So you can see how one investment by the private sector in power can affect the entire system. It will even help us deal with issue of security because you have power 24/7. Right. And so public sector needs to play its own role in helping to create the right environment for private sector to do well. Now let's go to the private sector. Private sector also has a lot to play. First, Africans who save their monies abroad should stop that. They should bring their resources, save it in Africa, so that to help capital formation on the continent. Or use their money to invest and create job opportunities for others on the continent. It's something we owe people. The Oppenheimer Foundation and ourselves, the Tony Elumelu Foundation, we commissioned a study. We did a book. We call the case study on the book, followed subsequently, Africans Investing in Africa. And we found out that there's improvement. Africans are beginning to invest in Africa. Ourselves, United Bank of Africa, we're investing in 19 African countries, creating employment, over 1,000 branches across Africa. The Dangote Group operates in 11 countries, creating employment across Africa, generating foreign exchange for our country and also for the country operating, same as MTN and all that. We need to begin to see African private sector take investment opportunities beyond the shores of their country. Do well in your country, of course, you have to have a strong base, then invest outside. So something we need to do. A third thing the private sector needs to do is that we need to realize that poverty anywhere is a threat to everyone everywhere. It's a threat to market everywhere. So it's not just enough for us to have pockets, few of us who are successful. So we must try to build a pipeline of future private sector leaders, entrepreneurs, etc. That's why the Tony Elumelu Foundation, it's not as if we have so much money that we endow $100 million for creating to help empower 10,000 African entrepreneurs. It is because we believe that the development of our continent can come from us, will come from us, and beyond us, or when our time is past, where's the next generation that will take it further? So we need to. So my call on African private sector leaders is, let us not see it as a government job or government responsibility. We all should play our own responsibility in making this happen. And I tell you, the 20 million entrepreneur program, first year, we got 20,000 applications from 53 African countries. We had the painful exercise to take only 1,000. We worked with Accenture. They analyzed everything and recommended the people to us. The second stream, the second set we just finished now, or we just concluded, is that we have applicants for 45,000 young Africans applied. And unfortunately, we can take only 1,000 out of this 45 because the program is 1,000 every year for the next 10 years. So today I call on other African leaders, take advantage. You already have, we've taken 1,000, we have over 10 very solid applications, solid business initiatives. Take a certain number and support these people because we must play this role to create the next pipeline of African leaders. We need to eradicate poverty. We need to deal with the issue of unemployment. And we need to realize that no one but us will develop the continent. And so we need to begin to play our own role. So that's for the private sector. And for development partners from, especially outside Africa, you know, in the 21st century, we need to begin to re-examine our intervention mechanism, our engagement mechanism with Africa, how we give, you know, and begin to say, 21st century giving, should it continue in the manner that it has always been? And what do I mean by this? We've had charity and giving for so many years, aid, donor funds to Africa, but it has not helped to move the needle. It has not stopped Africa from becoming totally reliant on this. What we need to do is to turn our people into fishermen. And don't feed them, don't give them fish, turn them into fishermen. And that is what the 20 Million Entrepreneurship Program is all about. Give people resources to establish themselves. fend for themselves, their community, families, communities, and in fact help create more jobs for others. So I'm saying 21st century development partners who intervene in Africa should re-examine the way it's done and see if they can help to intervene in a manner that creates self-reliance and not perpetual syndrome or dependency.
I want you to also speak to an area which obviously many suggest that Africa has a huge advantage, and that's agriculture. I know Transcorp, for instance, is invested in that space. Earlier I mentioned the fact that the FX Commodities Exchange is operating in West and East Africa, and especially in the context of what WEF can do to galvanize investment in that space. Can you just speak to the opportunity that you are seeing, the challenges that you are seeing, and how a forum like WEF can help?
Now, agriculture is the biggest employer of labor in Africa, and it's also the biggest contributor to our GDP on the continent. And agriculture is a gold mine, but the information, the way we practice agriculture in Africa before was more of subsistence type farming, just ability to feed the family. And we didn't think beyond that. We didn't think of commercialization, growing, doing bigger things. Because of a plethora of reasons, a lot of reasons, like you see of the ease of doing business also. But the research we are launching at WEF, we'll make it available to you and we'll also invite CNBC to it, talks about the opportunities in that space. The 20 Elumelu Entrepreneurship Program, these who were applied and the successful ones, we discovered over first year, the first 1,000, I think the highest number of sector that entrepreneurs indicated interest in was agriculture, over 273 out of 1,000. And this second year, the same thing. So it's telling us something. It's telling us that young Africans are interested in agriculture. And these are educated young Africans. What they need is the right environment to succeed. I'll give you an example. In Uganda, 2 weeks back, last week, the president of Uganda, Museveni, was at a farm set up by 20 Elumelu entrepreneur in Uganda, someone who succeeded. And it's amazing. You see the pictures of what the guy is doing on his farm. But it's very good also for the president to visit his farm because that's encouraging. It encourages and he can do more. And so we have seen that it's not even a question of trying to encourage people to go into farming. Our people are interested already. But we need to support them. We need to support the ecosystem that makes agriculture profitable. We need to change our mindset from seeing agriculture as a social investment to agriculture as a commercial investment, to agriculture as a commercial business, not just what you're going to because there are no opportunities. It should be deliberate, and our young ones are doing that. We need to also, again, about competitiveness and the role of WEF, the role of every one of us, because we need to support, encourage, advocate for our governments to embrace or to make our economies, operating environment very competitive. People need to process what they have, their produce. In Nigeria, we have tomato in Kebbi. If we had a reliable transportation network that can move you from Kebbi to Lagos, what it does is creates big opportunity for the Kebbi farmers. And so the prices begin to appreciate in a manner that they can feed themselves, pay school fees for their children, and be proud that they are tomato growers. And possibly begin also to explore opportunities of processing the tomatoes. So they can have tomato puree. So many things can come out of it. But where these facilities or incentives, opportunities are lacking, people will only be subsistent. And that's why we're where we are. So what can WEF do? Create awareness, help to drive advocacy, and create networking platform for those who are interested in investing commercially in agriculture and those who have the expertise, the interest, the land. Africa has huge arable land in Africa. In fact, Africa should be feeding the rest of the world. So food security, the solution to food security is in Africa. WEF should help attract more investment and also get government to help create the right environment that will enable this to succeed.
Thank you so much for speaking to us. Of course, I've been speaking to Tony Elumelu. He's the chairman of Yes Holdings, United Bank for Africa, the Transcorp Group of Companies, and the founder of the Tony Elumelu Foundation. And this year, he is the co-chair of the World Economic Forum for Africa, holding in Kigali, Rwanda. And of course, that ends our coverage of the road to Kigali, brought to you by WEF in partnership with CNBC Africa. CNBC Africa will definitely be a part of this year's forum, so do make sure you tune in. Thank you for watching. I'm Wale Famrewa. From me and the team, it's goodbye.